So I am so excited, everybody. My guest today is Lisa King. She is amazing. I just had to share the story, and I'm so fortunate that I have her as my guest here today. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about Lisa. So Lisa is a pharmacist, a health consultant, an Amazon best-selling author of Tiny Little Changes, which she co-authored with her sister, Lauren Daniels, who can't be here with us today. Lisa is dispensing tips for health, happiness, and ageless living. She believes in disease prevention and is all about a healthy lifestyle and being the best version of yourself. Lisa tells herself that she can turn a difficult situation around. And that's the title of our podcast today. It's called Turn It Around. So I'd like to welcome Lisa King to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Heike. I'm really excited to be here today.
This is awesome because as you guys don't know yet, but Lisa lives in Scottsdale, Arizona, which is currently really nice and warm. So I envy her.
I do, and it's actually taking a little bit of a cold turn right now, and I'm just not used to that. I love warm weather, so even having a bit of a nip in the air is a little different for me.
No, I also want to tell our audience that it's very difficult to get a hold of you because Lisa works at the pharmacy all the time, and she told me she from like being a little munchkin, she wanted to be a pharmacist. So why a pharmacist, Lisa?
My grandmother always loved her pharmacist, and she just wanted everybody to be pharmacists. And I always say I'm the only one who took her advice. I always wanted to go into medicine, and I always wanted to go into community pharmacy. So I work retail, but as a pharmacist, I just always wanted to connect with my patients. So that was really the best place for me. And yes, I do work long hours. Yesterday, I worked a 12-hour day that turned into like 13 and a half hours. But I love it. I really do.
No, because my initial thought was that maybe the pharmacist that your grandma knew was so cute, and that's why you said, "Oh, I'm so cute, and I want to be a pharmacist."
Well, the funny thing is, maybe she did. It's funny. A lot of people really connect with their pharmacists, and when I first started, there weren't as many women pharmacists. So I remember one day at work, somebody kept just saying to me, I want to speak to him. I want to speak to him. And here I am, this, 23-year-old pharmacist, and I'm looking around and I'm thinking, there's no him here. It's just me.
I feel is so empowering because now the women are on the forefront, moving to all amazing, great positions that were formerly held by men. So I love having a she pharmacist. I tell you that.
Yeah, it's great for certain conversations too.
Now, one of the things you shared with me, there were 3 major events in your life that really impacted your way you live your life, how you embrace health and happiness and ageless living. And I'm thinking about your sister and your other family members. Share more about this, if you don't mind.
Well, my mom and my sister are both breast cancer survivors. So my sister was actually diagnosed at the age of 35. We had to start getting mammograms earlier because of my mom's breast cancer diagnosis. So she had an 11-month-old. Her youngest was 11 months when she was first diagnosed and had to have a double mastectomy. So she started a charity that helps moms undergoing cancer treatment. So for me, their diagnosis was just part of the start of my own healthy living journey, trying to prevent that disease for myself.
And what is that charity called?
The charity is called the Happily Ever After League. It's here in Phoenix. They also have an Atlanta chapter. We call it HEAL for short. That's the acronym.
Okay. That's amazing. That's a huge impact on someone's life when people so close to you get so sick. And I think many of us feel really helpless or don't know where to go when this, like in this case, breast cancer hits us. And medication is still out there, but good consultations and a great community of women that can help us with their advice and their leads of finding good help is so sparse, far in between.
Yes, I agree. And then just for me, as when my mother-in-law became diagnosed with her Alzheimer's diagnosis, that was just another step for me to learn and try to find ways for my own family to prevent that. And really, for me, a lot of it goes back to like sugar reduction. So I really talk a lot about that. Just really healthy living to try to prevent any disease and live a longer, more fulfilled life.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So with that, I'm also working with breast cancers here through Pilates and helping survivors function better, be happier as they go through the process, and healthier, of most of all, as they go through the process of a mastectomy or chemotherapy. Do you guys include any exercise as well in your?
We do sometimes. My sister and I at the Healing House sometimes have what we call ever after events. And so that's for women who've already been through their breast cancer diagnosis. And we'll often do mind, body, spirit. So my sister, who's a life coach, she'll maybe do meditation or gratitude journaling, and I'll talk about healthy living. One thing that we've had there that actually the women love, and I love too, is pound classes. Have you ever tried pound with the drumsticks?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's super. It's out. We usually do it outside, and we have a friend who does pound classes, and so we'll do that. We've done meditation, that type of thing. But yes, sometimes yes, we do include exercise as well, because as you've said, and we've talked about, sometimes you have to modify when you're going through any real different diagnosis. You may have to modify your exercise.
Yeah, absolutely. Those drum classes, I was exposed to it at one of the fitness conventions where they were teaching a couple of years ago, drumming on balls.
Uh-huh.
And it's such a fun and energetic activity. I was like, I wholeheartedly go like, yes, you guys drum on. This is cool.
It really is. We just do it on the floor, but I forgot what they said. I think one class is the equivalent of doing like 500 squats or something. It's amazing, but it's super fun while you're doing it.
Yeah. Now, I want our listeners to know we didn't meet through this venue of breast cancer survivors. We actually met on the internet.
We did.
And it was not a dating service.
No, it's amazing. When I started on Instagram 2 years ago, if you can believe it or not, I didn't even know what Instagram was. I don't even know why I wound up there one day, but I did. And I took a little class on how to share on Instagram. And honestly, I have met the most amazing community of women, just as yourself. We have a whole group of women over 50, and we meet on Instagram, on Facebook, and it's just so great to be able to connect with other women your same age, get tips on healthy living. We all share different things, whether it be lifestyle tips or fashion tips or healthy living tips, but it's a great place to be. So I love it there.
Yeah, the group is called Instagram Over 50 Group, and you can find us on Facebook. If you're interested to join the group, I know our fearless leader will be very happy to have more women in our group. And that's how I met Lisa. Because most of the time you hear that people are dating on the internet, and we actually became friends, and I'm so excited about this.
Yes. And, as we get older, sometimes I actually posted about this recently. My kids are really spread in age. So I never felt I really had a place to belong, because I have 2 older boys. And then 10 years after my middle son was born, I had my youngest. So when the other moms were sitting in the fields at the baseball field, I was chasing around my 2-year-olds. And then when I was with the 2 moms of the 2-year-olds, I had teenagers that are, I had to drive at night. I wasn't just putting a baby to bed. So this group of women, I just have loved being able to really form a connection there.
I agree. Now, I really want to highlight to our listeners your book that you wrote with your sister, Tiny Life Changes.
Thank you.
How did that come about? I know it started out with your sister's breast cancer, but tell us more about the book. Tell us more about what the book teaches, and what steps you have, and how it is working with your sister on a book.
Oh my gosh, it was fabulous. My sister and I are really close. So Tiny Life Changes is kind of about just jumping into whatever you want to do and making tiny changes till you get there. So we really had never written a book before. We were fortunate to find a publisher, but My sister, as I talked about earlier, she went through a difficult diagnosis when she was 35. About the same time, I was going through a difficult time. It was about the downturn of 2008. And my husband and I had a lot of real estate holdings. The real estate market really took a turn. That's when I actually went back to work. I had taken 4 years off when my youngest was born, and I was fortunate to stay home with him and my older two boys. But when I went back to work, I just really was kind of sad. I was missing my family. It's the long hours, as we had talked about before. And I just thought, gosh, how am I going to get through this? So I delved into self-development. I just started reading any book I possibly could and learned how to turn my thoughts around. So really just taking any difficult situation, turning my thoughts to make it more positive. And Lauren and I just came together and thought, we really just want to share this. So Tiny Life Changes is really just about taking the thoughts that make you stronger, taking one step at a time to reach your goal. And it's just a fun, happy, positive little book.
I think it's more than that, Lisa, because I read it from,
oh, thank you.
From top to bottom, or from cover to cover, or whatever you say, and that's the jargon is. And what I really love is that it's thoughtfully put together with exercises to help people really form their own thoughts as they go through each step. And having mantras or self-affirmation, I thought that it was so well put together that there's an exercise, there's an explanation to it, and now you think about it. So you're putting the work onto the person to actually do some self-exploration, which I think is hugely important.
Well, thank you. Yes, when we put it together, a lot of people just find change very daunting. Even just living a healthier lifestyle, you're thinking, oh my gosh, I have to reduce sugar and walk more and drink more water. But if you just take it one step at a time, so that's what it's really all about, just taking it one step and one day at a time. And we kind of wanted to keep the book simple. I mean, everybody's at a different point in their self-development, but we wanted it to just be simple so that you can just get started. We didn't want you to get a book that was 200 pages long and feel, oh my gosh, now I got to read this book and figure out how to make these changes. So yeah. I do think it has some very great and simple reminders.
Yeah, I think it's, like you said, it's easy to read, it's easy to digest, but it's also, like I said, I love when I give my audience things to do that they actually have to write out stuff and not just read through and like, oh, I'm done. So I love it. Which brings me to the point, how does it feel to be a famous author?
Well, I'm not sure how famous I am, but that's one thing about this whole journey is it's just taking one step and one day at a time and doing what it takes to become an Amazon best-selling author. So we had a lot of coaching along the way from our publisher because honestly, we really weren't sure what we were doing, but a lot of it was through social media. So just the power of social media is just astonishing to me. Even just getting, your podcast, for instance, just helping women to become healthier, happier, you reach so many people. And I just find that to be wonderful.
Because I was curious, because I find it daunting to write a book. I'm struggling with my blog posts. So I love podcasts because I can just be me, and I'm hopefully do that eventually too when I write a blog. And you just recently started a blog.
I did. And I love it.
And so it's definitely a different medium.
It really is. But, it's funny. When I was a little girl, I used to sit at my desk and pretend I was Laura Ingalls Wilder, who's an author. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm fulfilling my dreams from when I was a little girl. So I'm excited about it.
Because I definitely wanted to see how that felt. Now, I want to go back a little bit because we've talked before this interview. Of course, we want to get to know each other better before we talk. I recently was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease from my gut. And as we started talking about this, you said that this is something you don't often talk about, but I thought it was a really important part of your journey. And I know I can't pronounce it correctly with my German accent, but it's a painful bladder disease called
interstitial cystitis.
Thank you.
And so when I was first diagnosed, basically it feels like a very painful urinary tract infection. It's extremely painful. And I was diagnosed about 25 years ago when my middle son was a year old. And I've gone through this journey, and the reason why I started sharing more and more about it is I like to say I'm miraculously better than I was many years ago. And it's mostly through diet. I mean, I had a little bit of a flare recently, which was very unexpected for me because I had really been feeling pretty good for a long time. So luckily, this flare did not last very long as it had in the past. But to me, it's all about diet, self-care, and just taking care of yourself. So I really highly encourage women who may have an autoimmune disease or gut issues to look at the diet aspect of controlling that disease and the symptoms.
Mm-hmm. Are you on any medication for it as well?
No, I am not. And I was on a lot of medication many years ago. As a matter of fact, when I got pregnant with my youngest son, who is now almost 15, I had to go off all of my medication. And I wasn't sure how I was going to do, but honestly, I did great just by really strictly controlling my diet. I follow an interstitial cystitis diet. Plus, I do a lot of other healthy living things as well. And then just self-care. So for instance, this last 2 weeks when I wasn't really feeling well, I just really rested a lot, which many years ago, that would have been just foreign to me. I always felt like I had to go. Do a lot of meditation, just kind of breathing, like thinking of breathing in, like healing light, healing my bladder, and then just breathing it out. I do a lot of that. And I honestly have to say, I feel so much better.
That's amazing because, I mean, I can only imagine. I've had a bladder infection, a urinary tract infection, and that hurts like the dickens.
Yes.
That for so many years, even worse. Living with that kind of pain is just almost unimaginable to me.
It is. And, some of my followers on Instagram and just as a pharmacist, it's really helped me to, connect with other people who live with chronic pain and chronic disease. And sometimes you can't tell by looking at them. So you look at them and you think, oh gosh, they're fine, but they're living with horrible pain. And it's just made me a lot more compassionate as a pharmacist as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. How does this kind of a lifestyle also translated into your family?
Oh, well, I have to say I'm very proud of my family. They are all just getting so healthy. And yes, it's funny. Years ago, my husband used to always tease me because, I am gluten and dairy free because that helps reduce inflammation. And he'd say, oh my gosh, you only live once. What are you making me eat? You only live once. And now he's saying you only live once. So he wants to eat healthy because my oldest is married. My middle son, I keep calling him my youngest because he was my youngest for so many years. My middle son is getting married on New Year's. And we're like really looking forward to the future grandchildren and wanting to live a healthy lifestyle so we can keep up with them.
Yeah, you said whichever one of your sons also lost 15 pounds since you changed the diet in your house.
Yes, my youngest, who's almost 15, he has actually lost 17 pounds, and everybody's like, wow, he really shot up. But it was really just because he's eating what we're eating, which is healthier food, salads, chicken, fish. And many years ago, so if you think I was like this all the time, I wasn't. I honestly used to bake every single day, if you can believe it. So,
oh my God.
Yeah, I loved baking, and I think some of my friends kind of miss it, but that was kind of the way I showed my love to my family. And if I'm not as famous as an author as I was for my chocolate chip cookies. I mean, I was
those times.
So I was pretty famous for my cookies, and I would bake them every day and bring them places, and we would eat them. And now, if I do make the cookies, honestly, we'll maybe have one or half. They taste too sweet to us. And so my youngest, who sometimes has this kind of food around him, just doesn't really crave it anymore because he's used to eating a healthier way of life.
Yeah. That's, I think, again, we've talked about this. It's like the way we live as parents teaches our kids so much. And my kids too, they always said, Mom, nobody eats like us. And I said, what do you mean nobody eats like us? Well, everybody has sodas and chips with their lunch. And I was like, no, we're not. We're having apple and water or milk. And they're like, yeah, but that's why we don't eat like everybody else. And to this day, I mean, my son has become a foodie, a little
Mhm.
snotty foodie, but he is a foodie. And my daughter has become a vegetarian because she is dealing with other health issues herself. But they've learned from us how to eat better and live better.
Exactly. And that really brings me to a point, which, I don't want to say I'm judgmental, but I do sometimes take a peek into the grocery carts, where I work at the pharmacy. I work grocery retail, and I try to encourage people to eat healthier. But, I feel that a lot of times in America, people are just looking to take a pill. I mean, I have an instance that comes to mind for me where I had somebody coming to look for an over-the-counter memory aid. It was an older patient, and we didn't carry it at my store. And so I tried to talk to them a little bit about Alzheimer's prevention, because I've learned a lot about that and reducing sugar. And they kind of just looked at me, and they were like, oh, we just have a sweet tooth. We're going to go to the other store and look for, this medication. So, changing your diet really can help. But for a lot of people, it is hard and overwhelming and daunting. So just one step at a time, one tiny change at a time can lead to big results.
Which then I think, what outreach programs do you have that you start other than the one with your sister from the pharmacy? What do you guys do? How do you guys help people from there?
We do flu clinics at assisted living facilities. And that really is one of the other reasons why I'm just so passionate about sharing this, because sometimes, I've gone year after year and I see these same patients in the same state. And so it's one thing to live a long life, and it's another thing to live a long, fulfilled, healthy life. So that's why I really am all about sharing this information, because you don't want to just live a long life. You want to be able to enjoy your life and enjoy your family and friends.
Yeah, I totally agree. So we have the Happily Ever After League. So everybody, we're putting links in the show notes so you can find it. I guess you can't get a flu shot unless you live in Scottsville.
No.
Arizona. But, it's like you can look into Alzheimer's prevention. As Lisa mentioned, there's a lot of people out there that you can, associations that you can connect with and find help with. But other than working, tell us, what does Lisa do for fun?
Well, I love to read. That's one of my big things. I just love reading. I like to take walks, and it's usually pretty nice and sunny in Arizona. I do Pilates at night, but I always say it's like an easy version of Pilates. And as we were talking about before, having to make some adjustments towards whatever disease or different modifications. That's how I got into yoga and Pilates. It was because when I first was diagnosed with interstitial cystitis, I could barely even walk. I mean, so there was never any way I could run or do any high impact exercising. So yoga and Pilates was perfect for that. So, and then I just love to go out to dinner with my husband, have lunch with friends. That's what I love to do.
And you guys need to know that Lisa's husband is her high school sweetheart. And I don't want to neglect to say that their first date was eating ice cream.
Yes, it was. And it's funny because it's at a place called the Sugar Bowl here in Scottsdale, in Old Town Scottsdale. And it was an older facility back then when we had our first date, but it's kind of iconic. And so I just always feel like it seems very innocent that our first date was at an ice cream parlor, but when you're 16, there's not many other places to go.
Oh, wow, that's been a long time. Now, also Lisa is sharing with us today healthy tips for you guys to stay healthy through the holidays, because we already had almost said trick or treat, Halloween, where we all dipped into the candy. If you have kids, I know Kit Kat used to be my favorite, but my kids are grown too. But I asked Lisa to share 3 tips with you guys, how to stay healthy through the holidays. Here she goes.
All righty. I'm just all about gut health. And so gut health is so important to boost your immune system. So take a probiotic. That is just one of the top tips. And you can find probiotics in a lot of foods too. Like yogurt. If you're non-dairy, you can have an almond yogurt. Fermented foods like sauerkraut have probiotics in them. And then I could literally talk all day about fiber. Fiber is just so important for your diet to help regulate gut health so that you can get rid of the waste. It helps push your waste out. It's a sponge for toxins, I always say. Helps you feel full too. So if you're going to a party, have more vegetables, things like that. Oats are another great fiber, but I'm really more about just the fruits and vegetables. I'm all about, a diet high in fiber naturally. Mm-hmm. And then my other third tip is to keep party foods for parties. So as Heike said, the Kit Kat for Halloween stays at Halloween, if you're going to a party, it's all about balance, but, have that little treat of the cake, whatever, while you're at the party, but you don't have to have it, the next day too, or the day after, because when you really have high nutrient dense foods, that helps absorb into your gut and really just helps boost your immune system so you can stay healthy through the holidays.
Yeah. And I always say too, don't let the host send you home with their food. Don't
exactly. Yeah, because that's my trick. If I'm baking those cookies, I don't want them at my house. I will send you home with them.
So these are 3 awesome tips about gut health and the holidays, because everybody struggles, and then year comes around and everybody wants to do a cleanse and a quick weight loss and a quick this. Even if we're just a little bit more careful through the holidays, we don't even have to worry about it that much. Of course, we will indulge to a certain extent. Who eats pumpkin pie all year long? Or I'm looking forward to a big juicy piece of turkey with gravy. But like you said, it stays at Thanksgiving and not 20 days after or through the new year.
Well, the thing is, this year, I really have to keep it only for the parties because my son is getting married on New Year's Eve. So that's the tail end of the holiday season. So I'm thinking, there's no way I want to gain 5 pounds and have to be the mother of the groom. I want to look my best for that wedding. So I'm going to be watching myself.
Very true. So where's and I didn't share that before, your handle on Instagram is called The Fulfilled Pharmacist. So in what direction will the Fulfilled Pharmacist grow?
Well, I really think in the future, I would love to do more group coaching. Lauren and I, my sister, have talked about that, just the same way we do for the Heal Moms, with the mind, body, spirit. We probably will be doing that in the future. But right now, we're just enjoying where we're at. I absolutely love sharing on Instagram. I just started my blog, which has been very well received. And it's a blog really about health tips. So you can find that at the Fulfilled Pharmacist blog. And my sister is going to be a grandmother for the first time. So she's kind of just taking that. Right now, the baby's due right a little bit before Christmas. So we're just enjoying where we are now, just enjoying our families, everything we have going on, sharing the book. And the one thing I will say about the book, most people who get it, the first thing they always tell us is, I have a friend who would love this book. So Tiny Life Changes is a great holiday gift as well. And so if you have a friend going, through a difficult time, or just a friend who likes a cute book where she can fill in different blanks, it's the perfect gift.
Nice. And before we close, what would you tell other women going through a difficult time? What would be your wise words for them? Your advice?
I just really think, it's back to the title of this podcast, turn it around. I mean, there are still days I say to myself at the pharmacy, Lisa, turn it around, because I just got through a long weekend. I had another little incident where I wasn't really feeling my best, but you know what? I just always say, your patients don't know that. Like, you still have to be happy and, fulfilled with them. And I always think the quickest way to bring a smile to yourself is to bring a smile to someone else. So that's my big goal every day, to bring a smile to one of my elderly patients. And that makes me happy too. So that's my biggest tip. Just turn it around.
I love it. And now we want to find out how people can reach you. And we put all the links in the show notes. So you guys have to just click on the links. But Lisa, ribbit, where can people find you?
Well, they can find me at The Fulfilled Pharmacist. If you go to tinylifechanges.com, you will also see a way to connect with us there. There will be the links to buy the book. And another thing I want to share is we are all about positive thinking, positive affirmations. So if you go to tinylifechanges.com, you can download 5 minutes worth of positive affirmations, and that you can listen to in the car while you're cleaning, during your walk, and it's a great way to start your day.
And these are for free, right?
For free download, 5 minutes worth of it.
So it's a free guide from the Tiny Life Changes. And you can find of course, the book on Amazon.
And Barnes and Noble.
And Barnes and Noble, thank you. You have a website under the same name, The Fulfilled Pharmacist.
Well, I have tinylifechanges.com. The blog is the Fulfilled Pharmacist .blog, I believe, on WordPress. And then, of course, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at The Fulfilled Pharmacist. Super
easy to find, Lisa. So wasn't that an amazing interview?
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Lisa shared so much amazing stuff with us today. And don't forget, you get the freebie at Tiny Life Changes. It's always a good start. And then you can get your book. It's a winner all around. So I want to say thank you so much for your time, Lisa. I feel so honored that you were here with us today and shared all your wisdom and your personality. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me.